Hello everyone, and this is BioPhoenix here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a Famicom game, and that being The Wing of Madoola. So this one was developed and published by Sunsoft and was released in 1986 and only in Japan. Now one thing that is interesting with this game is that, in a lot of ways, it's actually heavily inspired by an anime that I actually did review before called Lita the Fantastic Adventure of Yoko, you know, the one that I compared a lot to Valis. And knowing that, this game is also kinda similar to the Valis series as well. For that, it's also an action platformer starring a female character. And one little random trivia I'll talk about before we get to the short story is that this game actually did get a small little manga series that came out in 1987. And in the game 3D Game Heroes, where in the loading screens it does a lot of parodies of different video game cover arts, while this one actually did make it in there, which I thought was kinda interesting. So now, with that said, let's talk about the game's story. So this game actually takes place in the kingdom of Badham. Badham? I don't know, but it sounds like Badham. Well anyways, this kingdom had a legendary bird statue called the Wing of Madoola. And this Wing of Madoola has a lot of crazy powers, and there's many different kingdoms that are trying to have war to try to take control over the Wing of Madoola. And one of the kingdoms managed to lock it away so that no one can seize control over it. But it seems like that they overlooked one thing, and one of the evil kings named Doritos ended up stealing it and using it for his own power and wants to destroy the world. You know, we've all heard it before. So it's all up to the main character Lucia to put a stop to this. And of course I have to mention that all this crazy backstory is actually not mentioned within the game, it's all in the manual. But yeah, the story is exactly what you would expect for this kind of game, so anyways, now let's get talking about the gameplay. So the objective is simple, go from point A to point B, but before you can reach point B is that you gotta defeat a boss, and after you defeat the boss, you have to make sure to get the crystal ball, and when you get that, then you can go to the exit and progress to the next level. But before you try to fight the bosses though, of course it's always recommended to go exploration into these tiny caves because you can get upgrades for your character. So yeah, there is a little tiny bit of RPG elements in here, but not a whole lot. Because you don't level up in the traditional sense, because as you get further through the game, then you'll get more maximum health and MP. But the different things that are available to upgrade once you find them are the sword, the flame sword, magic bomb, bound ball, shield ball, smasher, flash, and boots. I'd say the most important ones would have to be the boots and the regular sword. So the sword is obvious because it's your basic weapon, but the thing is though, it takes forever to kill enemies in this game if you haven't upgraded it at all. And the boots are really important because it really makes your character walk a lot faster and can jump higher. But the rest of the upgradable items are just different magic attacks, which of course are very important though, but I'd say those ones are best to use during boss battles. And another important thing I have to mention though is that when you die in this game, it's all the way back to the beginning. Yeah, don't you hate that? Well, the good news is that during game over screen, if you hold down start and select, you can actually start back where you once were, so that's actually really helpful. And the other good side of this too is that you don't need to go inside like the little caverns to acquire upgrades again, you'll still have them. So now let's get talking about the game's controls. Well, I think they're not bad, but there is some important things you need to know. So, obviously when it comes to like the button layout and how to play it and all that kind of stuff, it's really easy to figure out. But the controls themselves, while they are responsive, I do find that when you first start out in the game, the walking speed is pretty slow, and the attacking does feel a little bit stiff at times. But once you get your boots upgraded though, then the walking speed just gets a whole lot better, and you get to jump higher too. So it's one of those games where like, the farther you progress through it, the better it'll feel. If I could compare this to another game, and ironically enough this is also another Sunsoft game, it's kinda like Infester's Quest, where when you first start the game, your weapon starts out being really shitty, but as you upgrade it more, then the game actually does get a little bit better. That's the best way I can put it. So knowing that, the game's controls are really not too bad. I mean, I wouldn't say they're amazing, but I do think that they do get a little bit better as you progress through. So now, let's get moving on to the other things like the graphics, and I think for 1986, this is actually a really nice looking game. So of course, compared to other NES games that came out much later on, it's not gonna have like the same amount of great detail as those. Just one simple example I can point out is that all the character sprites don't have any black border around them. But with that aside though, I still think this is a pretty good looking game for the time. Like, it has a lot of nice bright colors, I really like the character sprite, and there's a couple enemy sprites that are also pretty nice looking too. And the game's art style is pretty nice too, not only with the game's box art, but I just think in the way how it looks in the game is good. So for an early NES title, I think this is a pretty good looking game for the time. So now, as for the game's music, the music is alright, but I wouldn't say it's great though. So there's not a whole lot of songs within the game, which is fine, but I found that out of all the songs within here, there's only like 3 of them that I liked, and that being the title screen, the above ground stages, and the castle stages. But I'm not saying that all the rest of the songs in here sound like doo-doo caca or anything like that. They sound okay, they're just not very memorable and are a little bit on the mediocre side. Yeah, unfortunately the OST overall is definitely one of the weakest parts of the game, but at least it isn't horrendous or anything. So now, if you want to go out and buy yourself a copy of the game, so I've seen a couple loose cards going for about $13 to $20, which isn't so bad for an obscure game like this. But then I've seen some complete in box copies going for about $80 to $100, so damn, that's a huge jump. But I get it, the box art looks cool as shit, but $80? Nah, I'm okay. If I was really desperate enough to start displaying this picture somewhere, I'd just get a poster of it. But yeah, at least the loose cards are affordable. And now, as for my overall thoughts on The Wing of Madoola, is that, well, this is kind of a tricky case because, just like another game I reviewed recently, this is one of those games that I probably do like more than most people would, because when I first played this game blindly, I actually didn't like it at all. I thought it kinda sucked. But then as I started to like play through more of it and started to understand its learning curve a little more, I kinda realized that I actually was kinda having a little bit of fun with the game. But knowing this though, I wouldn't say the game is like amazing or that it's like an NES classic type of game. No, I'd say the game is at the very least, it's a decent game. But it is a tough one to recommend for that when you first play the game blindly without knowing a whole lot about it, you're probably not gonna like it much for, like I said, the game starts out kinda slow, and also the fact that if you made progress and then die, you wouldn't know to hold down select and start to continue. And while I do like the level design much later on, I will say at first, it is kinda like repetitive looking, like you can tell that they just like recycled like a few parts like over and over again, kinda similar to another Sunsoft game being Atlantis no Nazo. But I can safely say that I do like this game a whole lot better than Atlantis though. And another shocker is that I actually like this game better than the Famicom version of Valis. Now that's another one I'm gonna have to talk about someday. And one last thing I will mention is that there's actually 16 stages throughout the game, so there's actually quite a lot of stages in here, which was a little bit surprising. But yeah, overall, I do kinda like this game, and I do probably like it more than most people would, but I wouldn't say it's like an amazing game or that it's great, but I'd say it's at least decent for the time. And as I already said, it is a tough one to recommend though, but if this does sound like something you like, I'd say stick with it and try to learn it as much as possible. And maybe you might be surprised. Well, anyways, with that said, thanks for watching and commenting, and have yourselves a great day.